Well, this past week has been World Space Week, and who better to talk to than a person who is interested in space, a particular aspect of space. Ed Faulkner, I'm so used to the initials, I'm going to read it. Science Applications International Corporation, what we know and love as SAIC. Okay, now you're a member of the National Space Club, so
Yes,
it's obvious you care about space, especially since you do IT. You're in charge of SAIC IT projects with NASA.
Yes, sir.
And that's from communication all the way to support for missions. So we were chatting about the fact that when the Apollo years, IT, they wouldn't have known what that meant, would they?
Exactly. Wouldn't have had an idea. They had less computing power than we have in our watches today.
Well, of course, lots of things could say that, but we have, when you think about that, when you think about how primitive things were and we still went to the moon, how do you put that in context to where we are now?
Well, first off, I'm always amazed by, we got to the moon without the computers that we have today. My father was one of the engineers working on things like that, and it still had the slide rule. So that amazes me. But what's happening today is really, it's a digital transformation. Everything is going digital all the time. And we're getting access to it either by our watches or our cell phones over networks that we couldn't even have imagined back then.
Okay, you know, and some people hear, oh, I wish we still did it with slide rules. But the difference is, I think, what we do now is quicker exponentially.
Absolutely. Our ability to collaborate, even times like this where we can't do it in person, our ability to collaborate using the tools, telecommunication tools, is amazing. At SAIC we use Zoom, but other people use Teams and other things, and we're holding 20, 30, 40 person meetings, looking at sharing documents, working on them, collaborating on them, doing them all at the same time, and never being in the same room.
And y'all are making this possible for NASA to do this because they're trying to go to the moon and trying to get a rocket ready to fly. And while there is some hands-on, most of it is done remotely, isn't it?
The majority of NASA right now is teleworking. They're having to collaborate remotely. Now, people that have to go build things are going and building things, and they're taking all the right precautions and stuff. But largely, NASA is telecommuting right now and collaborating online. Okay,
but when you talk to NASA folks, do they ever talk about, I'm amazed we're still getting things done?
Absolutely.
You know,
it's actually been a huge learning event. In the past, we always thought everyone had to be in the same room and we had to account for everyone. Now they're learning that they can be, in some ways, they can be just as productive.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, as SAIC is talking about, different ways where we can start incorporating this in the future. Not everyone's going back to work.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to telecommute, or a lot of people are going to telecommute and then go in for a meeting or an event or an activity and then go back to telecommuting. It's going to change, it's going to have changed the way we do business.
Is that a good thing? I mean, obviously what you do, that's a good thing, but I mean, you're doing this, you're teleworking, there is a downside.
Well, there is a downside. While the collaboration can happen, the interaction is what's missing. And in fact, we've actually had to have our small team get together before to get in the same room and work on the whiteboards together in order to accomplish hard things. We're going to do it again coming up in the next couple of weeks, where we've got to bring about 10 people together in a room designed for 60 so that they can collaborate to build a response to a proposal.
And you know, one of the things about computers, for instance, in IT, what we're doing right now, a year from now, I don't do that anymore. It's slow. Is it amazing how fast it's changing on your end?
It's hard to keep up. It's very hard to keep up. What's going to start happening with all the computing being done in the cloud, and then your access to it instantaneously is going to be amazing. And I don't know how closely you've looked at when you use a web browser these days. If you go out shopping, you're going to see ads for whatever you went shopping for on every browsing session you have from then on out. That's how pervasive the whole thing is going to be.
Oh yeah, well, we all know about you search for something, suddenly those ads start popping up. Back with NASA, it's almost inconceivable doing the things we want to do in the timeline that we want to do them. It would seem to me that it would be really hard to do it if we didn't have internet technology.
No, I believe you're absolutely correct, especially given the times we live in with COVID.
Yeah.
You know, if we wouldn't have had the infrastructure, we'd have had a whole different problem. We'd have been shut down, not not telework,
Yeah.
shut down without the capability.
Okay, the capability brings with it I'm not asking this right. The capabilities we have right now, I would imagine sometimes we're going, hey, we can do this now. I didn't even think about that. Is there some of that out there?
Oh,
where NASA's discovering things, you're discovering things that we didn't even know were possible? Absolutely.
There are situations where we thought we had to have humans in a room next to the hardware in order to interact with it, in order for it to keep running. And now we've been 6 months with no humans in that room, or only going in when there's something they have to touch. So we're learning a whole different way of doing business for the agency.
Well, now, Jody Singer, not in our regular studio, sat there and told me she had never worked harder in her life since she started teleworking. She said the downside for her, and I imagine for a lot of NASA folks, maybe for you, is there's no break to walk down the hall to somebody's office and chat.
The commute is what all of my people tell me about.
Yeah.
So the commute used to be the punctuation of the day. You had to get up and go drive in, and then you knew the day started. And then at the night, you had to get in the car and drive back, and you knew the day had ended. Now there's no punctuation. So now you're working all day, and one of my guys said, Ed, I sit down at my desk every morning at 7 o'clock to get ready for the first meeting, and then when I look up, it's 7 o'clock again.
Yeah.
And he's been there the whole time.
But once again, without that being possible, we would be in a world of hurt.
Been a world of hurt. Again, we'd be shut down, not.
Okay, we were chatting about computers and some of the things that we can do, and you were talking about the cloud, which I would love for you to give everybody a brief description of that, but I'm not sure that's even possible. But the cloud is kind of, we'll talk about the cloud as you were talking about it, how if there are a bunch of people looking at something or using it, it expands and then it goes back. It's hard to imagine. It's not a computer. It's not a memory somewhere. It's nebulous only.
Well, it's nebulous, but what is called infrastructure as code.
Yeah.
And what happens is the infrastructure that you build reacts to the load that's on it. So as more and more people try to log on and see what's going on that infrastructure, it employs more and more servers, more and more network resources, and it spins up to accommodate the load. But the best part about it is as that load goes away, it spins back down and disallocates those servers and lets them be used on something else, which also decreases the cost.
But you also said that it remembers things from that particular effort.
Absolutely. It remembers what it took to spin up, how fast it had to spin up, how many additional resources it had to have, and then when you run it again, it's already ready to go.
When you contemplate, as NASA folks do a lot, going to Mars, do you think, the computer power needed, I suppose we could go with what we had last year, but it will be so much easier with what we'll have in 20 years, and God knows what we'll have then. But do the NASA guys, are they kind of intrigued with the possibilities?
Oh, they're fascinated with the whole thing, and planning the future right now based on the technology we have, but forecasting what's going to happen. Keeping track of Moore's Law and how the computing is going to continue to improve.
Okay, I'm going to try to put you on the block here, so to speak. Where might we be in 10 years or in 20 years? What are the guys who sit around thinking about that stuff saying?
You're going to have to get a hold of a different group of people. I'm hanging on. I have been working technology since I was 20 years old, but it's going so fast, it's hard to keep up anymore. I have no idea where we'll be 10 years from now, but it will be vastly different than where we are right now.
Would you expect, from what you hear, that more capacity, more power, and speed?
Absolutely, and I think you got to start in 10 years. You got to start thinking about artificial intelligence and all of the things that will be able to be done for you.
Yeah.
It'll be amazing.
Okay. But while we're still talking about this, it just dawned on me that we need to talk about keeping all these systems secure and all this amazing development, and keeping the bad guys from. If NASA's depending on advanced computational ability to go to the moon and go to Mars, how do you keep that safe?
Cybersecurity's got to be at the core of everything we do. And it's certainly at the core of everything NASA's thinking about right now. One of the methodologies that we're exploring to build the security in instead of install it afterwards is a technique of working together called Devsecops.
Yeah.
And it's where you have the developers, the security folks, and the ops folks all working on the problem at the same time, and all making sure that their requirements are getting addressed as you build it, not after you build it. So we're exploring that right now, and we'll be implementing it.
Okay, it's uncomfortable though that Every time we come up, yeah, this is safe. The bad guys have been working 24/7 to make it unsafe.
It'll be a constant evolution. This is the way it will go forever.
So we're never going to reach the point where we have a system there's no way they can get in.
We keep thinking biometrics are going to be the answer, but biometrics are going to be really good, but they're not going to be the answer. Right now we're doing things like multi-factor authentication where you have to have a user ID, a password, a biometric, and maybe we'll text you on your phone and give you another number. But that'll get overcome and we'll have to go to the next thing after that.
Okay. You said you're just hanging on. If you're just hanging on, what are the rest of us doing?
Well, the rest of us are the target.
No, you're not the rest of us.
They're the target demographic for the technology.
Yeah. And NASA depends on guys like you and your company, SAIC, to do the advanced work and come up with the new ways of doing things. Do they kind of call you, all right, what do you have this week?
Well, what we talk about with the agency is relentless innovation.
Yeah.
How do we relentlessly innovate what we have? How do we support you better, faster, cheaper?
And does it really save money? I mean, it costs money to develop these things, but in the long run, does it save money?
Oh, absolutely. Some of the technologies that we've recently implemented have a 15% return on investment. We're automating some of the network capability that now it doesn't require a human to intervene because the network is smart.
Okay.
It knows who you are and what you should have access to.
Okay, by the way, I need to say that you started out your career as a software engineer.
Yes, sir.
Correct. So when you're just hanging on, everybody else is going, wow.
It just happened so fast.
Okay, and you expect it to continue?
I expect it to continue at this pace or faster.
A year from now, something different?
Absolutely.
All right. Ed Faulkner from SAIC, thank you. And next time there's a launch, I'll go. IT did that.
Yeah, we did. Thank you, sir.
All right.